Hello everybody, it's Drew with Greenbox Solar. It's been a little while since I posted much content, but it's been for a valid reason. Been pretty busy putting solar on roofs, helping people out, creating some clean, renewable energy. But I definitely want to get back to posting a little more often, try to answer some questions, and just provide some content that you might find useful and help you with all your solar and renewable energy needs. Last week I was on a guest on a podcast, and I'll post a link to that with primary and secondary. Great group of guys, a lot of stuff that I didn't know what they were talking about. I was kind of lost in some conversations, but the topic of the conversation was power management, mobile power, and kind of emergency backup type power is what I was there to discuss. And lots of topics. I won't get into it. You can watch that if you want. Good long podcast. But it got me thinking about a couple topics I wanted to address today, and one of them is different types of batteries, different chemistry of batteries, specifically for smaller to mid-size off-grid applications, and why you may or may not want to choose some of the options. So this will be a little bit longer of a video than my normal 1 to 2 minutes, but I think it'll provide some good insight, some good ideas. So the main two types of batteries that are being sold right now for these type of systems are a lithium ion or a sealed lead acid of some type, and there are slight variations in both those, and different brands have different features and things like that. But in general, I'm talking about differences between those two and in price and kind of the basic pros and cons. So first thing most people are going to notice is the price difference, and there is a pretty dramatic price difference, although it's really only an upfront price difference. So I'll explain that. So lead acid, seal lead acid of any kind, has been around for a long time, kind of a proven battery type for a lot of applications, and we'll use like 100 amp hour size is pretty typical, pretty common right now. You can buy that in for your RV or maybe a small cabin application or a bus conversion, van conversion. We've done all those. 100 amp hour battery cost you $250, $300 for a decent one. And the equivalent in a lithium ion will be $900 to $1,000 for a good one. And so that obviously sounds like a lot more, but let me give you a little insight as to why that may not be that big a deal, and could be a benefit actually to you in the long run. So one of the biggest issues or concerns that come to my attention with the deep cycle is the fact that you are not supposed to over discharge a battery or discharge a battery, by past 50%. So I see this happening quite often, especially in RV setups where maybe it's sat for the winter, maybe they use it once in the season, and then they try to charge those batteries up in the spring and nothing happens. It's not holding a charge much at all. No capacity left, and it's because the battery is just damaged, and often that's beyond repair because they've been discharged way past 50%, often clear down to zero. And so when you buy a 100 amp hour lead acid battery or sealed battery, you really only are getting 50 amp hours of usable space in that battery, because obviously if you go past 50%, you're risking damaging the battery. But in a lithium ion, you buy 100 amp hours, and a little bit of variance here depending on the brand and maybe the battery management that's built in or not built in, but kind of a minimum of 80%, which means you can discharge that battery when it's fully charged. You can discharge 80% of that without risking it at all, and mini batteries is all the way to 100%. So it'll clear down to zero juice left in that battery, and it won't hurt it. So we'll just use 100% for easy math. There are batteries out there that are rated for 100%. So if you buy a 100 amp hour battery, you really get 100 amp hours. Therefore, you only need to buy one of those for every 2 of the deep cycle batteries. So based on that price point I told you before, now we're looking at $600 versus about $1,000, maybe a little less, for the same equivalent storage. But then the other big factor for price anyway to factor in is how long that battery is going to last. So a good deep cycle, if you're not overcharging or over discharging it or overcharging it, you're maintaining it well, keeping it stored well, that maybe 700 cycles out of a good battery, which if you're using it heavily, or even just once in a while on a weekend outing, a week trip, whatever, with the RV, that's a few years maybe. But then you got to repurchase those, and you really got to babysit those to get that amount of life out of them. Whereas lithium, pretty common to get a life cycle rating of kind of a minimum of 2,500, 2,500, up to about 5,000, some of your higher end lithium batteries. So you have the low end of that, dramatically more, 5 times what the sealed acid battery is. And so you start dividing the price by the number of cycles that you can run on the battery, and lithium becomes drastically cheaper, 4, 5, 6 times cheaper over the life of the battery. And just to not have to worry about maintenance on the battery. It's much harder to hurt those batteries because you can't overcharge them as easily or discharge them as easily. So I think there's a lot of convenience, and we start looking at the long-term big price advantage with lithium. It's just that initial sticker shock that scares some people, but I really do think it's the better option in most situations. There still are good reasons to go with a deep cycle if it's just a very occasional use, a lot of small applications, because you get smaller capacity batteries than you can in lithium. So still reasons to do it, but I'd say in the majority of off-grid solar applications, lithium is definitely now the way to go. So that's kind of my thoughts anyway on that. Just easier to use over the life, cheaper. Look at some lithiums. They're getting to be more and more common in RV stores, whatever. We obviously carry them in green box, and I can show you how they interact and connect with solar, all the solar equipment. In some cases, you do need specific equipment that's lithium compatible, so don't forget about that when you're designing a system. But that's the quick on the batteries. So check out some lithiums. We can help you out. Thanks for watching.